This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. In this video, we're doing 3 buttercream flowers we think you should try for spring, and we're putting them together in a lovely cake design. It's broken down into steps so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as desired. We're going to make several colors for this cake design, and to start off with, we're going to make a little bit of buttery yellow. We're using our American style buttercream, and we're going to use the following liquid gel shades: some coal black, royal blue, neon bright pink, lemon yellow, violet, buckeye brown, and finally some red. And to make my yellow, I've got a little bit of that yellow out, so my lemon yellow, and a little bit of my red, just because I want to give it a hint of that. So just a couple of quick specks of that yellow, just to get that in there. And just to give it a bit of an orangish feel, just a tiny speck of that red. And we added just another little speck of that red, just because I wanted to give it a nice hint of that, almost orange. So think of it a pale pastel egg yolk kind of vibe. Next up, we're going to make some mossy green. For that, we're going to use some lemon, some royal blue, and just a touch of brown. And we want more lemon than royal. So think about giving it a balance that's more yellow. And just a little bit of that brown. And that'll give it a nice kind of earthy tone. And here's our finished shade. We added just another speck of our blue and brown just to bring it a little closer towards the green. I always find it's easier to start heavier on the yellow and add a little more of the blue and other colors to a green like this, because it's harder to go the other direction with it. So you can see we have a nice kind of beautiful spring green that just has a bit of that brown to mute it, a tiny touch. Next up, we're going to make some periwinkle blue. To do this, we're going to use some more of that royal, a little bit of violet, and a tiny touch of black. So I'm going to go heavier on the blue because I want this color to feel blue, even though it's going to have some purple in it. And just a tiny touch of that black. And we added just a touch more, so think like 2 more specks of purple, 1 more black to get our final color. But you can still see very much reads as a blue. It almost feels like a nice kind of spring rain if I were to give the color a name. And we just have a little bit of that purple and black in there just to give it a nice kind of subtle, more refined shade. Next up is a pink. We're going to make a pink for our kind of hyacinths. So I want to start out with some of my neon bright pink. I want to give it a touch of my red, and just a little bit of that purple. And this one came out just as planned. And you can see we get a nice light pink. It's cool toned. It reminds me of maybe a raspberry mousse would be a great color name for this one. So it's a nice cool tone light pink. Our final shade is going to be a purple. And just like our other colors, we're going to blend some of those other shades into it. So I'm going to start heavy on that violet or purple color. And then I'm going to add some of our pink, just a little bit, maybe just a tiny touch of that black. And here we have our finished color. I added just another speck of that pink just to kind of warm the color up just a tiny touch. And you can see we get a nice in-between shade that still reads as purple. We're going to get our cake ready for decorating. You can see I've already got it coated in a nice smooth layer of white buttercream, and we're just going to give it a coating of that beautiful blue that we made right on top of it. So just like we would if we were icing the cake, but a much thinner layer. Once you've got the top, we can go ahead and take care of the sides. Since it's a small cake, it doesn't really require much of that colored buttercream. Just make sure you get all the way around your cake and you don't have any show through. So fill any of those little low spots and dips. And when you get back to where you started, give it a quick pass. I like to use my bowl scraper to push frosting in any low spots or dips and really make sure I get nice full coverage. And then I like to give it a nice pass with my bench scraper just to really straighten up those sides and make sure I get nice, clean, crisp transitions. If you've got excess on the top, just use your spatula to just gently shave it off. For today's project, we're going to use 4 bags. The first one up is our purple, and we're using it with a number 61. Next is our pink. We're going to use this with both an 81, which we have on there now, and a number 12. For our green, we're going to use several tips. First up, a number 3, a 16, and a 352. With our yellow, we'll be using a 102 and a number 1. First up, we're going to pipe some daffodils, and we have a great lesson on these, so if you want to check out a more detailed tutorial, you can. Key points are diamond-shaped petals, starting with the fat end in the middle. You want to slide out, pull a diamond shape, just like that. And we're going to do 2 sets of 3 of these. You can use templates to help you space the petals if you want, or you can freehand that spacing like we're doing now. Sometimes I feel like that gives me a little bit more of a natural feel. Once I'm done with that first set of 3, I'm going to do the next 3 on top of those gaps. They're going to kind of fall down in a little bit, which is going to help give them some depth. Next up, we're going to use our green, and this is going to make us a little center. This is going to help support our little trumpet that we're going to do. So I'm just going to do a dot with that number 3, and then pull a few little spikes right on top of it. They don't have to be long. We're just making kind of a little column of frosting there in the middle for that trumpet to go around. We're going to switch back to our bag of yellow. It's still got our 102 on it. And we're just going to go straight up and down with it, kind of wiggling to get our little trumpet, and just go all the way around so you overlap that beginning and just encircle those little green stamens that you did in the middle. And there we have our adorable petite little daffodil. If you've watched our original video, you'll notice we've changed up some of the tips to make a different size and modified our technique just a little bit, especially in the center. I went ahead and made like 6 of these in advance, plus this little guy, and that should be more than enough to decorate our cake with since we're doing a small cake. If you want to do a larger design, pipe more flowers. Next up, we're going to make some tulips. I'm going to start with my green and my number 16 tip, and we're using just a modified version of tulips that we've already done in our basic flower series, since we want to make some smaller ones. So we're using just our 61 tip for the petal on these. So I'm going to start by piping a star, and then just pipe 3 nice little spikes going up there in the middle to make my center. Next up, I've got my 61 tip in my bag, on my bag with my purple, and I'm going to go right just on my nail. So think about lining up that opening so it kind of rests flat, and then you can just pull it up just a little bit so there's a little space for that frosting to come out, and then we're just going to pull straight up and kind of over the top to just almost enclose it. And if your center is kind of the right size, 3 petals should take you all the way around with very little room in between. You can see how it almost encloses it perfectly, and that's a good start. we're going to do a second row of petals. So just on the outside of the first, offset. So we're going to cover up the seams. Just go right next to them and pull. And you can see they're even more supported now. So it's going to make our tulips a little taller and cover up those gaps. And then we have a look of a beautiful little spring tulip. There we have our little tulips. If you want a more in-depth lesson on these, where we make a larger size, you can check out our flower series video. We went ahead and made like half a dozen of these. We've got them on a tray chilling in the refrigerator so that they're going to be ready to place on our cake. Next up, we're going to give our hyacinths a try. And we're going to start out with our number 12 tip. I'm going to start on my large flower nail, and you'll notice I've got a much bigger piece of paper on for this one. And I'm just going to start out by making a nice big dot and then kind of extending and tapering it forward into a nice curve. We're going to switch to our 81 tip, which we've just done, and make our little trios that create our blossoms. So we're using the 81 tip in a bit of an unusual fashion, almost thinking of it as backwards. We want those petals to kind of curve and cup outwards. And we're just going to go until we cover the entire surface of this little mound. And if you've watched the original video in our flower series lesson on hyacinths, you'll notice we did it kind of coming up. And this one is laying on its side. So rather than something that's tall, we're doing something that looks as if it's kind of flopped over. And this is actually just a tiny touch easier because we don't have a big kind of like freestanding unsupported mound of frosting. So if you've given them a try and you're like, oh, I don't think so, this is a slightly easier way to do them. And you can actually do them both ways and kind of mix up their orientation on your cakes. So we wanted to give you a little something different for this lesson. Give you a different option. I just started at one end and I'm going to work my way up. And for a while I'm doing this, it's not really going to look like much. It's the little centers that we're going to give these little trios of petals. It's going to help set them off and give them the idea of flowers, especially when they're placed next to our other blossoms. And just turn your nail however you need to get those little petals in there. And if you have an awkward space, you can always put in a single. It's more important just to kind of fill that surface area. And take up that space. To finish this off, we're going to go in with our yellow and our number 1 tip. And we're just going to put little spikes in the middle of our flowers. So anywhere you have a trio of those petals, just giving it a little hint of yellow. By pulling those tiny stamens, it's going to help set it off. And they don't have to be perfect or exact. Just want to get some yellow down in there. They're a little wild and a little free. That's actually fine. And sometimes I just add an extra little group of stamens in between just to kind of give us the idea that there's more flowers than there are. But just kind of give it a rotate and make sure you got all of them. Add in the extras if you need to. And just like before, we're going to put these in the fridge to chill them. And I went ahead and made 3 of these in advance just to get them ready, chilled, and firm so we can place them on our cake. Our cake is chilled and so are our flowers, so we're ready to start decorating. I've pulled out a small group of blossoms, not all of them, so I can work slowly as I need to. I've got my bag of green ready, and I've changed it to my 352 tip so we can make some nice little leaves on our cake. And to start with, I'm just going to use it to put a little squish of buttercream down there. Doesn't need to look like anything. And I'm just going to start by placing one of my large hyacinth blossoms. I'm just using a spatula. You can use any kind you have on hand, so any offset spatula to help get those in place and remove them from the paper. And I'm just doing this one so it's kind of curving in slightly. So you want to kind of take your time, get things in the right spot so they look nice, and then keep going. And I'm going to make some leaves today with this 352. And we've got some great videos on the basics of leaves, but I'm just going to do some nice little wriggling basic leaves here just to get myself set up. So you can see already starts to look a lot more like a nice little hyacinth blossom that's just laying on its side. I'm going to grab a little daffodil to go at the base. You can see I've just got that there. Just slide your spatula underneath. That'll release it from the paper. And then I can just throw that in there at a nice little angle. If I need to, I can go right behind it and pop in another leaf. I'm going to do a little trio maybe of my tulips, and I've grabbed my extra blue just to help myself out. I've got a little extra frosting there, so I'm going to put it to good use. Just make a little support. That way I can kind of angle my tulips towards the viewer and they're not too static and flat. And that's going to give me something nice and soft to work on. And I can just do the same thing, slide my spatula right underneath those. And then it's got something to rest down in. You can see it presents it forward. That way if the bottoms of our tulips are a little bit I don't know, a little messy, every once in a while I get a little kind of flare of frosting there at the bottom of these. It kind of covers it up by angling it towards and away from the viewer. And it gives me a nice little spot to go down in between. You can see I've got a little trio there. And anywhere I can see that blue is a good indication that I need a nice little leaf. And I'm just going to pull kind of straight up with these. Just go around from every angle, and anywhere I need a little green, I can put a little bit on there. Now maybe come over to this side and work a little bit because I've got one more daffodil out. So give myself one of those nice big wriggling leaves. Off to each side, something for it to sit on in the middle. We'll come right over here. And you can see just a couple of blossoms of each kind, and I've worked my way almost halfway around my cake. So we've been working around our cake and I'm still placing some flowers, and I decided I want a few more tulips than I originally planned on. And one of the great things about these kinds of tulips is that I don't have to do them on my nail. I kept my bags just in case I ran into this exact situation. I want another little pop of purple over here. I don't want to do too much yellow right next to it itself. So I'm just going to go, and you can see I put a little mound of blue there, and I can pipe directly on my cake with very little trouble. It's actually quite easy. And sometimes this makes it easier to get things in too at a little bit of an awkward angle. I'm just going to go over here and put a third one over there, just so I have another grouping of 3. Ended up being less hyacinths and more tulips than I planned, which is fine because I also had just a little bit of extra purple. So don't be afraid to just kind of take your designs where they go. And let those colors and that orientation kind of lead and guide you, especially near the end. And I'm not too worried about the little bit of messiness I got down there because I'm just going to go ahead, change my tips back, and cover it up with some green. And I'll have a perfect spot to pop in maybe a last little daffodil or two. So let's just go in here and pipe some beautiful leaves right in between those tulips. We'll cover up any blue we've got showing and any little purple bits there on the edge. I'll just come in and put in some green for my daffodils. And get one of these off the paper and see whether we have room for one or two. And I think it's just going to be one perfect last little daffodil in between. Just going to go right behind everything and kind of prop it up a little bit with one last little leaf to fill in that area. And here we have our finished spring cake design featuring our 3 wonderful flowers we think you should give a try. Whether it's tulips, daffodils, or hyacinths, or all 3, they're a great way to bring in spring with a floral cake design. We've got some nice soft muted colors and some fun festive flowers. If you enjoyed this lesson, we hope you give some of our flower series lessons on these great blossoms a try. Or if you want a more detailed lesson on leaves, try checking out our video on basic leaves. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It truly supports our channel and helps us share more in-depth cake decorating lessons. Want to level up your skills? Our yearly membership has certificate programs from beginner and up. Learn more at cakedecoratingschool.com.